Grace, and thank you everybody for coming out tonight and braving the weather. We seem to have gotten through the storms pretty well without too much trouble. As Grace said, my name is David Baldinger. I'm from Berks County. I have been a volunteer activist for this cause full-time since 2004. I'm very passionate about it. I think you'll be able to understand that tonight with what I have to say. So let's get on with it. I have a group called the Pennsylvania Taxpayers Cyber Coalition. It's a web and email-based group for folks who aren't fortunate enough to have a local group like Cap Taxes to represent them. It's currently about a 4,000 person email list, and the website gets anywhere from 300 to 400 hits a day, so there is interest in this initiative. The PCTA is the Pennsylvania Coalition of Taxpayer Associations. Cap Taxes, your local group, is one of the members. We started in 2004 with 4 local groups in the Berks County area. We now number 75 groups statewide, and we have one goal: the elimination of school property taxes in Pennsylvania. That is our sole focus. I'm going to start you out with a few numbers. Anybody have any idea about those numbers? $24 billion is the current cost, total cost of K-12 education in Pennsylvania annually. 6.25% is the annual rate of increase. If you take that as a constant and extend it out for 10 years, you're going to find that total school costs in Pennsylvania are going to rise to $44 billion. It's unsustainable, there's no way we can support it, and it has to stop now. That's another number for you. Anybody have a clue about that? How many of you know about the PCTA crisis, the pension crisis? I see some hands there. About how property taxes are going to go up in the next few years to cover the unfunded liabilities of the teachers' pensions. That's the increase you can see in your property taxes in the next 2 to 3 years to finance the pensions for the teachers' union. Any of you going to have a problem with a 30% increase in your school property taxes? I would think. One more number. I'll give you a clue about this one. This is from the Reading Eagle, my hometown newspaper, from August 16th. These are not foreclosures. They're tax sales. Here. This list totaled 1,100, and Charlie Urban handed me something when I came in tonight. This is Luzerne County. 8 pages of tax sales. 10,000 is the estimated number of homes that are sold at sheriff's sale each year for non-payment of property taxes in Pennsylvania. 10,000 families lose their homes because of this inequitable tax. Every year I pay my property taxes right at the end of the rebate period, and I paid them last Wednesday and had a chat with our tax collector. She's very friendly toward this initiative. She said, it's going to put me out of a job, but I don't care because it's the right thing to do. But she gives me some interesting information. Now, in Berks County, I wouldn't say is necessarily wealthy, but people are not necessarily struggling in Berks, at least we thought. She told me a couple of things. First of all, more people this year than ever before have gone on the payment plan. They've been unable to make their property tax payment in one lump sum. She said she's never seen this number of people before. People have complained about reverse mortgages and having to take out reverse mortgages, which to me is unconscionable. You work your entire life to build a home, to be secure, and you have to remortgage it at the end of your life just to be able to pay property taxes? The thing that struck me the most, she said a 25 to 30% increase in folks who are unable to pay their April tax bill. Now, you know that's the smaller of the two. If they've been unable to pay their county municipal taxes up to this point, how are they ever going to afford their school property taxes? It's often said you can't come up with a solution if you don't know the problem. And a lot of our legislators in Harrisburg seem to feel that this is just a problem of high property taxes. People complaining about high property taxes. It goes far deeper than that. And that's what I want to talk about tonight, education finance reform. I'm going to tell you about the problem first, and then the solution we're proposing. First myth, property taxes are the problem. No, property taxes aren't the problem. Fourth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which our office holders are sworn to uphold, guarantees that we will be secure in our property. Yet the politicians who took this oath will allow our homes to be forcibly taken from us if we don't pay our rent to the government in the form of property taxes. Here are some of the problems. First of all, antiquated taxation system that doesn't adhere to taxation principles. Good taxation says that any tax should take into account the ability of a person to pay that tax. Property taxes don't do that. Yes, you might have a nice home you bought 40 years ago. You're retired now. Your income isn't what it was when you bought that house. In what way does the value of that house reflect your ability to pay the taxes on it? But further, if you look at the history of the property tax, it actually dates back to feudal times, Middle England. It was imported into Pennsylvania in the mid-1800s. The theory behind the property tax was, at that time we were in a agrarian society, there was no need to ask people their income. There was no way to find out what their income was. But it was assumed that a farmer who was farming 40 acres was making less money than the farmer who was farming 400 acres. And they were taxed accordingly. We maintain this tax today as if our properties are generating income. And they don't. We live in our properties. That's it. Why are we taxed as if we're generating income with them? Property tax is inherently arbitrary and unfair, and they are. You've been through the reassessment. Was it 3 years ago you had the reassessment here? Lebanon County, we have a member of our Lebanon County, the leader of our Lebanon County group here tonight. They just went through the reassessment there by the same group that did your reassessment, 21st century, with the same results. I have a very personal example with this. Berks County's last reassessment was 1994. My wife and I live in a cookie-cutter development. All the houses were built about the same time, same size property, same square footage houses, basically the same style. Yet somehow when Berks County reassessed in 1994, our house was assessed for $35,000 more than the one right next door to us. No rhyme or reason for it. We appealed the assessment, got a couple of thousand knocked off. Still wasn't equitable, but the point of it was we had to hire an appraiser to give us an official appraisal on the house. We had to hire an attorney to represent us at the assessment hearing, all because the government screwed up somewhere with their assessments. Inability to pay property taxes and loss of homes. I pretty much covered that with the story about the tax collector and the number of people who are losing their homes each year. Out of control spending. I don't like to bash school boards. I think there are a lot of good school board members out there who are dedicated and work very hard at what they do. But at our rally in Harrisburg in May, we had a PhD from Westmoreland County, Dr. Catherine Fite, who was a member of the school board out there, and she told the abuses to which the residents are subjected by that school board, the way they spend without limit. She said they don't know the difference between necessities and like-to-haves, and they don't care. They just decide, we're going to spend this. The parent comes and says, hey, we want this for our child, and they go ahead and do it. And who winds up doing it? All of us. We pay for it through increases in our property taxes. Lack of effective education cost controls. Well, we supposedly had cost controls in Act 1 that was enacted in 2006 that supposedly limited increases in property taxes to an inflationary index. There were 10 exceptions to that, however, and at that time 240 school districts, I believe, applied for exceptions. They were all rubber stamped by the Pennsylvania Department of Education. They all raised the property taxes above the limit. Last year, SB 330 was passed, which reduced those exemptions from 10 to 3. Except the 3 that remained were the ones that accounted for 70% of all exceptions ever granted. This year, 199 school districts applied for exceptions to the referendum so they could raise their taxes above the limit. 199 school districts were rubber stamped, and they did it anyway. Highest they saw was an 8% increase. Education and taxation inequities. I'll give you a really good one for that. The 1991 funding formula that drives out the money to school districts from the state level money, at the time it was enacted, held all school districts harmless, meaning that every school district would get the same relative amount of money forever, regardless of what happened to their school population. Berwick School District in Columbia County has lost 900 students in the past 10 years. In that same time, they've hired 40 new teachers, because they have not seen a reduction in funding commensurate with the loss of students. Residents in that district pay roughly 40% of their entire school budget in property taxes. The York Suburban School District in York County has had a large influx of students over the past 10 years. Those residents pay 89% of their school district's budget in local property taxes. They are getting murdered with a property tax bill, and there's no relief in sight. This happens all over the state because of that 1991 funding formula. And finally, the projected cost of education we talked about earlier. There's the short answer. An irreparably broken K-12 public education finance system. Second myth, property tax relief or property tax reform is the solution. How many times have you heard those words? How do you like that relief you're getting from gambling revenue? Give me a couple numbers here. What have you guys seen this year? What kind of relief did you get? $106 for us in Berks County. For us, for our home, against the $4,200 school tax bill. Thank you very much. The legislature likes to toss property tax relief and property tax reform at us, and hardly ever does anything about it. So what is the problem? Act 50 and Act 72 were both flavors of the same idea. It allowed school boards to partially shift from property taxes to a local earned income tax. Take some of the pressure off the property tax. It was left up to the school boards to decide whether or not to go ahead with this. Almost every school board in the state decided they didn't want to do it. So in 2006, Governor Rendell decided that, well, if the school boards won't do it, we'll let the voters decide. Act 1 of 2006 put that same question to a voter referendum. Shall we shift to a partial shift to earned income taxes to take the burden off school property taxes? 501 school districts in the state at that time, 495 of them rejected it. Governor Rendell afterwards said the people were stupid for rejecting it. I'm sorry, they weren't stupid, they understood the problem. Yes, you can shift from property taxes to a local earned income tax, but as long as you do nothing to cap those property taxes, they're eventually going to go right back where they were before, and now you have a new one to pay. House Bill 1600 was another flavor of this. It called for a 0.5% increase in the state sales tax, 4% increase in the state income tax, and you would have gotten about a $400 rebate. How many of you have seen your property taxes go up $400 in 2 or 3 years? I would think so. And guess what? You'd be right back where you were. Only 2 new taxes to pay. This is the kind of property tax relief we get from Harrisburg. Relief revenue is quickly outstripped by rising school property taxes. Any property tax relief plan is doomed to failure if you don't restructure the system. That's our mantra. No relief, no reform, no reduction. Replace the property tax with a fairer taxation system, drive a stake through it forever, and end it. And end this burden on Pennsylvania homeowners. Give me a second to look at that. That poor guy's been sitting there for the past 30 years. No wonder it looks like that. We wait long enough. Some legislators have told us that this is a complex issue, that it's not easily resolved. To me, I'm sorry. It's nothing more than a whining excuse to absolve them from taking effective action, and it's totally untrue. What they need is courage and political will, and ignore the special interests and partisan politics, and do what is right for the taxpayers who elected them. Many legislators say that taxpayers will not accept such massive change, like we're going to talk about tonight. Well, in the past year, I've given this talk in probably 50 locations across the state. People always agree with the way the plan works. To us, it's just another excuse. Would we have 75 taxpayer groups, or we have tens of thousands of supporters across the state if we weren't willing to accept this kind of change? People have told us they don't care if you shift to another tax. And you've got to do that. We're looking at $12.9 billion in property taxes. You can't make it go away. You've got to make it up somewhere. But people have told us they don't care if you shift to another form of taxation as long as it's fair and the property tax is totally eliminated. Thank you. I'll mention a couple of polls that happened too across the state. 3 areas of the state. Well, first of all, Quinnipiac. Quinnipiac Polling Institute is based in Massachusetts. They run polls in Pennsylvania quite frequently. Last time they ran a poll on property taxes was in 2008. At that time, 89% of the residents said property taxes were the single most urgent problem in the state. And that was in 2008. That was 4 years ago. Besides that, the Reading Eagle ran a poll on this bill. They ran a huge article about the bill, explaining how it works, ran a poll on it. 91% of those responding to the poll agreed with it. KQB Radio in Pittsburgh, and here we are from Reading all the way out the western end of the state. KQB Radio in Pittsburgh did the same thing. 79% of the people polled agreed with the plan. York Daily Record, South Central Pennsylvania, 78% agreed with the plan. 3 disparate areas of the state with the same result. People like what's going on. And a number of candidates have told us going door to door, especially one of them out in the Pittsburgh area. When he ran for the House of Representatives 2 years ago, he knocked on every door in his district. And the folks in that district told him, property taxes are the issue you have got to take care of now. Oh, we gotta get rid of him. The time for change. Rising homeowner discontent, we've seen it. You wouldn't be here tonight if you didn't find this a problem. Act 50, Act 72, Act 1 failures, they've all been a failure and people are tired of them. I hear so many times, no, they're never going to do anything about it because they've offered us so much before and they always mention the gambling revenue. And people become jaded. They say, no, they're not going to do anything about it. I'm sorry, this time we're going to get something done about it.